engagement.
Yeah, I think it's a really good topic. Whether they're new or whether they're doing it for a long time and just want to respect their time more, you know. But yeah, hopefully it's definitely like a leveling up move I found.
And I was thinking Ernie. Well, he might be still on vacation, but he would join to tell us how horrible it is. But he does not like doing any engagement fee. He never wants to be tied to anything, and I get that.
I get that, and there's a lot of situations in which I feel like I wouldn't want to do a retainer. So, like, if you have, for me, I look back at what I did this year, and probably 80% of it had some kind of a upfront payment associated with it, and then there was contingency too, because I'm not going to not take contingency.
Yeah,
but
I'm doing contingencies right now.
I'm hedging my risk, right? So, like, if I made a certain amount and or had a certain amount of cash flow, like that buys me the flexibility to take some risk on a few things. And there's some situations like we've all had the, hey, if you ever come across a X, I'll pay you for it type of X, right? So you always have a couple of those kind of sitting out there, and that's technically contingency, and that's more just you have your radar. You know, that's different. And if it's qualified properly, right?
We call those POJOs.
What's that?
We call those POJOs, presentations on existing job order.
Yeah. Those are my
MRI.
Was that an MRI acronym?
Yep.
Yep. Those are the accounts that I like to have to send my NPCs to. You just have a contingency agreement there and just throw NPCs in that direction.
Right, and the NPCs, as long as, at least in my view, the way I try to run things, as long as they're, you know, essentially recycled from other searches that I already got paid for, then, you know, why not? Right? Like, why not be like, whatever, like in high school or whatever it was, they would tell you that like the Indians didn't waste a bit of the buffalo, right? And you know, they used every part of it. Like, so we're using every part, like just its efficiency, right? You did a search for a CFO or a controller, or a software engineer, whatever, and if you pitch other people you came across to somebody else, you know. Or it might not be the whole. It could just be like they were the wrong, like they weren't going to be a fit. Like maybe the client you had is this on-site role, and you had someone who was remote only, and you can't use them for that. So why not pitch them somewhere else? Hey, what's up, Brendan?
Hey, everyone.
I think that goes back to though about the whole we put engagement fee on. You know, they get first shot at the candidates, and if they don't want the candidates but they're good, then you take them somewhere else. Like I always give my retainer clients the first shot at every single candidate. And you don't want this guy, fine, I'm going to go take him elsewhere. And that's when you can do the POJO or contingent stuff.
And you know what I learned of that too? I enhanced that further, and I think maybe we even talked about it. You could get jammed up because someone didn't technically decline them. They're taking too long to get back to you. So it's like, hey, I gave you first right of refusal. You know, I'm doing this search for you, and anybody I get, if you don't want them, I can send them somewhere else, but you gotta get the answer. So I added like a 1 week exclusivity clause to that language.
Well,
and I say 1 week because, you know, holidays, other stuff, I don't want to be an asshole. I'm not going to say 24 hours all the time, but like I have to have something to point to say, I do need you to either engage this person in the interview process or let me know at least that you're interested in setting something up, or just make a call so I don't waste their time and I can kind of keep moving. Because I did find that when I said there was exclusivity, sometimes whether they're intending to do it or not, it was kind of like stuck in limbo. And then I'm like, I got a few people here and I can't do anything with them, and you don't know what you want to do with them. So what are we doing?
Do you go ahead. Do you also find that there's a correlation between engaged and contingency with the feedback you get or the speed of feedback? Because with contingency, I am working 3 times as hard to get feedback. When you have an engaged search, you also have a lot better engagement with the hiring authority.
I don't know about you, Tom, but it's better, but it's not perfect.
No, I don't think we'll ever have
perfect. What's that?
I don't think we'll ever have perfect.
Well, no, not perfect. It wasn't as good as I thought it was. It wasn't as good as I thought it would be. Because I'm like, oh, these people are putting money up front.
Right.
They got skin in the game. And yes, there are some where they're like, we're engaged, we're invested. But surprisingly, I learned that it was actually a lot easier to get a client to give me money up front than it was for them to give me. I don't know. In a lot of cases, which is crazy, right? I don't know about you, Tom, because I know you do a lot of the same, but I don't know what you.
So I try to set it up in the very beginning that how important it is that I know within 24 to 48 hours the feedback on the candidate. And it's dude, I only need to know, A, are we going to move forward? B, we're going to hire them, or C, cut them loose. Right? I don't need this long drawn out, like tell me all the reasons why, unless it's something that I come to them and say, hey, I need to know more about this. But trying to set up in the very beginning when you get the engagement fee and you say, there's some parameters, you're getting exclusivity. All that I ask of you is that you interview the candidates within 24 to 48 hours and you give me feedback within 24 to 48 hours. And in most cases, it works. So as like Chris say, it's not perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But a great example is I'm sitting on $15,000 right now. I can't get a single. You won't return my phone calls, won't return from my emails. You already sent me a check for $50-some thousand for the VP of sales. You need to hire a CFO. I got him a guy, and they want a CFO who's got a law degree, right? So I got a CFO with a law degree who's excited, interested, has all. So I'm saying your 15 grand's used up. It's been a month. You drag a horse to water. You can't make it drink.
And that's how you protect yourself too. Like if it was contingency, I would get upset about it because I'd be like, I'm wasting my time. I'm spinning my wheels. Obviously, I'm not in this just to collect upfront fees. I'm in this to collect whole fees. But it does take a little bit of the sting out when you at least got something for it, especially when you remember years and years of just
working for free.
Yeah. and so I don't love it. Like if I only have a third or like a quarter of a fee. But I think back and I'm like, you know what? At least I got something out of that.
Better than zero.
I had 3 searches this year with engagement fees that never made it a hiring decision. I never had that before. But at least, I had the engagement fee and didn't spin my wheels for nothing. But still, I would have liked to have had the placement.
So I sell, you're paying me $3,000 to $5,000 to do the search, right? You were paying me $3,000 to $5,000 to go out there and talk to 50, 60, 30, 20, whatever it is people. And I have clients who hire me specifically while they have 2 candidates they're interviewing in-house, like 2 guys are going to promote within, and go out there and see if there's anybody. Here's $5,000. So I know I have a 50-50 chance of filling the position going into it. And I've had a couple others this year that.
What's your full cycle? Like that's kind of like a container agreement where they pay not a third and a third and a third, but how does yours work, Tom?
That is similar. It is kind of similar. I've heard container before, and it's pretty close to that.
Container or retainer? I've never heard container.
Well, I call it the engagement fee because it's one fee up front to engage us to do a search. It engages us to do a search for you for $5,000 or $3,000, whatever it is. And then
how do you
hire someone? If you hire someone, then you pay us an additional 25% of the first year's salary. In some cases, minus the retainer fee. Some cases not. It just depends.
But it has similarities, Kelly, to what we've heard container. And by the way, I hate the term container because customers know what the fuck you're talking about, right? Like, let's take 2 industry terms and mash them together, and then they're like, So
retingency. How about retingency?
Well, so what I found too, Tom, is it seems like the language you use is important, right? So that helps to kind of set the tone for like what they're paying for, right? So I've come to start using engagement fee for the first piece and success fee for the rest.
Oh, nice.
And I feel like
good. I like that.
And I learned it from somebody else, so I totally stole it. But like I heard that and I was like, that's completely the opposite of like industry language. So it's like then if you're distinguishing the names of the 2 fees for like the deliverables, I found that I feel like they get it quicker.
And we've stolen that from you.
I love
that.
That's really
you mentioned that 3 weeks ago. Yeah, we changed all of our marketing materials.
I hope it works for you. I mean, it seems to work for me.
It just sounds better. It's like more positive. Yeah. I'm definitely a fan of calling it that.
Do you do a percentage on the success fee? Is it a percentage, or do you look at it and go, okay, they're going to pay this guy between 200 and 250, so I know the fee is going to be at least 50 grand. Let's do 60 grand, 10 grand up front, $50,000 success fee.
I've done both. It depends on kind of their, I guess, kind of gauge the situation. I've had some clients where actually it was just easier to get it through procurement if it was a flat amount versus a variable amount. So I did that out of necessity a couple times.
That makes sense.
So that I just hedged myself and made sure that like it was a number that I wouldn't screw myself on. I've tried different things. I've tried I experimented with like doing a fee, but capping it so that there was like, okay, if it goes, we'll both agree that a reasonable amount for this role is X. If it turns out we got to pay more, this is the most I'm going to charge you.
25% up to 50 grand, yeah, or something like that. And I've done that too.
Yeah, or I've also done that midstream where, like, if I had literally a percentage and I'm finding that the market is the way it is, and I'm like, listen, if we got to close this deal and you got to pay this guy another 15,000, like, I'm not going to charge you anymore. I just want to get this done. So that's
done the same exact thing too. Yep.
Yeah. That's all.
Have you guys ever? We had a client, or not a client, but a sales call this week that we're going to follow up with next week, where they wanted a fractional CMO and a fractional CFO, and it's not even clear like what, like, is it a quarter of the time, like 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week? Have you guys ever done something like that where it's like it's a part-time but high up? It's not like a technician role. It's like a C-suite. And I was just trying to like think like, all right, how do we just project out how much they're going to pay this person over a year? And
so that's like basically like placing a high-level consultant. But here's what I'm hearing there that scares me a bit is if they could better define it, because what you're going to do is just provide them with a consultant time and materials type of billing hourly, right? Or monthly flat amount or something like that. But like, if they're not sure how much they're going to utilize this person, it's going to be really hard for you to articulate to that resource what this is going to be and what it's going to look like so they can give you a price. Because then all of a sudden, like, the number of hours change and they're like, well, shit, Brandon, I got to charge more. And then like, now you got to charge clients. There's stuff that needs to get pinned down there. But I think a lot of times when people are using like a fractional service, you can do that when you have like someone on staff who you're kind of like billing out to various clients. But if you just got one of those like standalone, I feel like that's really tricky.
It isn't, and I can't think of where you're going to find a CFO to work part-time, right? 10, 12 hours a week. It's going to have to be a guy who's 65, right? He's not going to be some 40-year-old.
Our customer actually did that. I used to work for an agency, and he ended up being a fractional COO at an insurance agency. Not to this day, still not sure what he did there, but I invoiced him for it.
How old was he?
He's 49.
Okay. That's something I was looking at it more of like, you're going to hire this person as a contractor for them. So do it like, okay, it's 20 grand. We'll find you this guy. If you end up hiring him permanently down the road, it's an additional 20 grand. Right. And then, that way you can get paid for doing the search, right? And getting the guy who's working 10 hours, and then all of a sudden the company explodes, you can get the rest, right? If that's, something that they may be thinking about, like, oh, we want to get this guy. That's a lot of times that we need a full-time CFO, but we need somebody. Let's say we get a consultant from Brandon for only 10 grand. And then a year from now, we hire him full-time. We saved ourselves a $50,000 fee. I don't know if they're doing that, but it's like, those are the things that go through my mind when I hear that.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
The viability of this search is concerning too, just because part-time is always challenging, regardless of
super challenging.
Because what ends up happening is most people need a full-time income, or even the ones who are like, oh, I just kind of want to work some of the time. I've seen it happen, whether it was part-time IT support, part-time office support, and everyone's always like, oh, we could just find like a stay-at-home mom who could work in between pickup and drop-off. That's what all of them freaking say. And there's this unicorn out there somewhere that did that once, and that's why they all talk about it. But like, it's like, I run away from part-time, whatever it is.
Because when she's picking the kids up, that's when the IT goes down.
Right. And that person is like gonna be trying to fill the rest of their time with other stuff. And then I've tried it in the past, and that person, they say they want to do it, and then all of a sudden a full-time role comes up, or some other gig that pays more goes up. If you have staff and you're paying them a full-time salary and you're billing them out as consultants on a fractional basis to different clients, like, you can sustain that.
That makes sense.
Honestly, I think that no matter how you price that, I think that could be a really frustrating one for you. And I don't want to be like, I don't want to discourage.
No, I mean, my co-founder, who is on like the tech side of the business, is the one who like took the call and kind of like relayed the information for me. And I'm aligned with you guys. Like, as soon as I hear part-time, I'm just like, that it adds a layer of complexity that is just like, even beyond the contract. It's just like, find someone that wants to work 10 hours a week on are they already working 40 hours a week? Are they unemployed? So it's good to hear all those other,
Doesn't Accenture do that, or whatever they're called now, Arthur Anderson? Don't they do that? They
Consulting firms
have.
do that. There's even smaller, like there's various CFO for hire, and you see this with HR consulting. You see it with CFO type consulting. There'll be local firms that maybe they just have a few people on staff, and that they have enough clients to bill them out to that they can pay them all like full-time salaries. And if you have enough clients, you don't need it's not too crazy. There's mid-market options besides like Big Four, but it's just tricky. I mean, all I can think about is like when you get a request like that, like maybe probing into what the business need is, and maybe in there somewhere is you know what I mean? Like take the call and just find out like where this is coming from and like why they want to approach it that way. Because it's just like any job order. When they come to you and say, I need an X, like one of my first questions is like, well, tell me about why you need that, right? Because they might have just decided, well, let's find a part-time CFO and COO, that'll work. And maybe that, that fractional CMO that they want. Well, maybe a decent director of marketing, which would cost about the same as that fractional CMO, like maybe is
or a controller. Maybe it's just a controller for $100,000.
Or whatever it is, just if you, and then that's more consultative. Then you're digging into like what's the actual business challenge we're trying to solve here, and I mean, hell, you might even uncover other opportunities, and I would take that opportunity.
What's the question we always ask? What are you trying to solve? What are you trying to solve? I mean, that's always the question we ask you when I start to search out, what is it why are you coming to me? What are we trying to solve? What is the end game? What is this person going to do? And when they start explaining to you, you may be able to say, wait a second, dude, a CFO is going to cost you $150,000 part-time. We can get you a controller for $120 who's there 40 hours a week. Maybe he can transition to the CFO, or as you grow, you hire a CFO for me.
And when it comes
to this weird thing.
When it comes to some of these roles, I've found that like everyone's definition of some of these types of positions can vary a lot. So like what they let's say let's use the CFO example. A lot of different opinions on what a CFO is. And what someone might think is a CFO is maybe just a sophisticated controller, like Tom said. Or
which is a lot of times it is.
Yeah. Or maybe they should be looking to like look at like, well, who's like, okay, maybe let's get a solid controller in there to handle the day-to-day stuff. And then if you're looking at like strategy and budgeting and everything, like does your CPA firm that you work with have like an advisory arm that could maybe provide like or maybe they could recognize it because maybe there's a company out there that like, let's get someone who can handle the day-to-day and knock out the bulk of it. And then it seems like you're going to need this person like once a month. So there's got to be a better solution for that. Or again, sometimes there's a lot of people I found, especially when I hired for mid-sized companies that were a little bit of both, That's
a great search if it comes out like that for him to get on retainer fee, like our engagement fee or whatever. Like, hey, let's talk about this. This is why we do what we do, and give us $5,000, and we'll find you somebody to fit this role full time. That's going to cost you what it costs for a part time guy.
Yeah, because sometimes they just decide in their head that's what they need because they maybe heard it from someone, but they may have decided that in a vacuum, and they may not have like thought it through, and you're just helping think it through.
Just shows that there is a problem to be solved. So I would really wrap my entire search or the conversation around the problem that needs to be solved, and it may have a completely different title altogether.
Yeah, I think
especially since they want two of them too. That's weird.
Yeah, they're a startup. They just got it's either seed or Series A, but it's like a sizable investment. And I think when I first started out, I made the wrong assumption that like if people say they want something, they're right because it's their business and they know their business. But it's just it's not the case. So I definitely agree with you guys that that's just the right way to approach this. Like, don't assume they're right. Just find the need.
Just confirm it, right?
Yeah,
like,
remember,
not just say that they're necessarily wrong, but just like understand how they got there. And like on a startup, like a decent funded startup, a lot of times I have found that board members are filling in some of those responsibilities. So like maybe you propose to them, listen, how do talk to me about your board? Who's on your board? Do you have a resource like this? Because maybe what you need me to do is you need me to find you another board member who has that kind of background, is doing this full time, whatever, and we'll have that person join your board, lend their expertise because they've got a stake in the organization, and then they're like, "Wow, I never even thought of that." But that's how this stuff gets done.
But wait, did I miss it? Because I was multitasking. How did you guys tell Brandon how to get paid for that?
We told him
like,
not
if
to
he
get paid for that.
places- What?
We told him that he needs to really dig into it. But if he wanted to get paid, I said 10 grand up front or whatever the fee is, and then if they hire the guy full time, have another fee attached to it. Like if you were going to do that. But we were saying more like, let's find out what you really need.
Oh wait, why would
as Chris said, it could be a.
What would, if he placed a person, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to get recurring revenue from that and get like a lot of these places where, you know, the consultant gets $300 an hour and Brandon would get another $50 or $100 an hour on top of that. But then don't you get into L&I insurance and you get into that
I wouldn't want anything to do with that.
Right.
And I mean, I've had situations where like the person's billing the client and I'm just billing them every month, like, you know, a percentage. Like I've done that kind of thing too. But like, I think my bigger concern, at least personally, my bigger concern here is, yes, that recurring, I love recurring revenue. We love it, right? But if the job itself isn't even doable because it sounds like they don't know what the hell they want and or what they want us to find is probably not going to happen anyway, I'm not going to bother pricing it out. So I think like, yes, I agree with you. Like where if there's an opportunity that you can have an ongoing, you know, consultant bill, because I don't carry temps anymore. I mean, I used to when I had a larger firm. You know, I would play around sometimes with, you know, this person's going to be like a 6-month like full-time resource for you. You're going to pay him directly, and I'm just going to charge you every month that he's working. Like I've done that.
I'm interested in this because I work in the biotech pharmaceutical industry, and there are a lot of people that work in that industry that make, I mean, they make tons of money and they have time to, you know, consult with companies 10, 20 hours a month. And so
why couldn't you start your own consulting arm that you hire these guys? I mean, it would probably take some investment, but you have your own consulting. You have your recruiting arm and your consulting arm. Your consulting arm is you have these 8 biotech guys who are super duper great that can come and consult to you for 10 or 20 hours a month, and you charge $1,000 an hour, and you pay them $600 an hour, and
service line for you.
Yeah, that you could do that, but that's
So would I still need to look at, not to go down this rabbit hole too much, but just to finish out, if they're not working on site, I don't need L&I insurance or anything like that, do I?
That might be a Chris thing. I don't know anything about that.
So
L&I, what's L&I? Is that errors and emissions spelled wrong?
Labor and industries.
Okay.
So if you're going to try to do something like that, it'd have to be their billing. You wouldn't want to bill that client. That person with their own insurance as a consultant, bearing the risk of however they're structured, billing the client, and then you're maybe billing just a commission every month or whatever agreed to amount as long as they keep working. Like I wouldn't bill the client and pay them, because then you are now like skirting, like you're definitely paying them as a contractor, and you may or may not be liable. You know what I mean? Like almost.
Well, isn't that what temp to perm is? Couldn't she do the same thing they do with temp to perm stuff?
No, but if temp to perm, she could do that, but then she would have to have more liability insurance. She'd have to have workers' comp. She'd have to be paying payroll taxes. She'd have to have like all that layer of complexity that you may or may not want. You might. I mean,
No, I don't. But if they're not on site, I don't know if I need all that stuff.
The other thing I would look at too is like Neil, who's one of the people who started this Facebook group originally too. People like that have employer of record companies that are set up for these kinds of situations where if I write up temp, like he'll literally, it's essentially white labeled, and it's just, but the people are on his paper, and essentially I'm just getting paid the commission. Right, he's putting the bill, he's got all the insurances, he's got all that kind of stuff. They're officially working for him, even though it's kind of like white labeled to the customer as me. He's bearing all that risk and then just paying me the margin, and that's another way you can attack it without while still maintaining, you know, like a firewall risk wise from an employment perspective.
Interesting. Is that just
employer record,
the RPO thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's there's PEO. I mean, there's like People 2.0 is like another one. I think there's a few companies like that, and then where essentially they are the employer, and you're essentially getting just paid a commission for having, you know, a place that like they work for Neil. To the client, they more or less appear like they work for you, just kind of, like I said, kind of white label, but officially they work for him and he's paying you the margin. And then the client is just
Wouldn't the client prefer not to pay two people though? I mean, that's, I think that
they're not
the
paying
selling
two
point
people.
is that
They're not paying two people, they're paying Neil. They're paying Neil and then he's paying you.
and they're paying me. Oh,
No.
Neil's paying me.
Yes. Yep. You go
Oh.
in, there's a whole portal he has set up where like they actually put like your temps, contractors, whatever the hell you want to call them, they put their time in. These people do the billing, but it's like white labeled so that it's, I mean, it's more or less appears as though it's coming from like Palermo Roads, right? But they're paying it to, you know, his LLC, which is not terribly unusual because like there's firms I work for where the actual LLC that the invoices were payable to was not the same as like the company name, like on the website. So it's not terribly complicated. It's one check that they're writing. And then you can log in the portal and you can see like what's coming, what everybody's billed, what the next check, what the next ACH is going to look like.
Okay.
It's a really
a
viable
lot more
opportunity.
doable than my way.
What's that?
I think it's probably more doable the way I was thinking than the way I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it more like Kelly starts up Kelly Nelson Consulting, and she's got 5 guys working for her who, you know, she sends out on contract to XYZ Pharmaceutical and charges them $1,000 an hour every month for the hours they work, and then she pays the guys $700, she gets $300, and it's all 1099.
Which
That's what I was thinking.
I think that exposes you. I'm not an attorney, but I think that exposes you to too much employment risk because if you're
telling them where to go and it's 1099. You're
and
actually
even just
making
the
them do
billing
something.
flowing through you is enough for it. You're attached to that, right? Like you're billing and then you're paying them. So now the government is going to say, Kelly or whoever, you're paying these people. They should be employees. And I mean, it's a hot button for the IRS still, or Department of Labor, whatever one.
Okay.
I would steer clear of that just because it's a dicey structure.
I wanted to say something you had said because the customer was right, and I always makes me think of that statement. I was talking to Brandon. You had said something. You know, you kind of like look at the customer is right. Was not the customer gets to be an asshole. The customer is right. It actually has more to it. The customer is right in style and taste. Meaning, if they come in and want to buy a red car, you sell them a red car, right? But the customer can be wrong a lot of times, and it's your job as a consultant trying to develop this relationship to explain to them why exactly they're not right in this situation, right? So you don't tell them they're wrong, but you take them through that. Where that the customer's always right thing seemed to have gotten very bastardized by capitalism and do whatever the customer wants. No, the customer can be an asshole. So it's customer is right in taste and style. That's where that came from, and I think it was like one of those.
Well, I mean, that'd be no different than if I was like trying to do something in my house and I don't really know shit about like carpentry or whatever, and I feel like this is what needs to be done, and somebody comes in who knows what they're talking about. It's like, I get what you're trying to accomplish here, Chris, and I understand like what you want to do, but that is not a good idea to do it that way. Let me suggest something that'll work better. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Sylvia,
Trust me, I've had
get out of here.
ideas.
Can you give us
This
your
is
best?
like no.
Since you have to get out of here in a few seconds, and this was supposed to be converting, contingency to retainer. Can you give us your best elevator pitch on when a customer says we only work contingency? How you transition?
It really depends. If I know I'm
Can you
working with a large client and that they will only work contingency, I really don't see much of a chance, but
New client that just comes to you, got one referral, you got a great reputation, and they want you to find an XYZ automotive guy, but they've only worked on contingency. How do you convert?
So I'm going to also ask them what kind of service that they're looking for. Do you need me to just pump resumes to your inbox, or do you want me to pre-screen them and actually be the extension to your HR department and or to your team? And I kind of wait and see what they're looking for, and then depending on what the answer is, if they really want me to do the pre-screening, then there's a service behind that. I mean, I'm not just here. Do you just want me to look what's in my pipeline? Do you want me to go headhunting? I mean, there's a conversation that goes ahead of time, so I don't have a set sales pitch. I really always just kind of listen for the problem that they're having. What's the pain points, and then I take it from there. I don't have a script that I follow ever. So
And also sometimes I might not want to go that way because after I hear what I'm hearing, I might be interested. Maybe I could pitch them leftovers from other food. And I'm like, because you careful what you wish for. Somebody might be like, hell yeah, I'll give you a retainer, let's go. And then you're like, why did I agree to this?
I've
ask them for some big fee and they say yes.
Yeah, and then you're like,
anxiety
oh, no.
over it because now I have to perform, right? I mean, now I have to bring the people. So no, it really all depends on what the story they tell me. Sorry, I can't give you a good rehearsed pitch here. But I've been going.
Steve's leaving. He's going to Germany for 2 weeks. Enjoy yourself. Guten Tag.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
You got it.
Bye.
Hey, what's up, Ernie? Look, we have two Ernies. Oh, there's Ernie. Yeah, you have that horrible service because you're somewhere you don't have good service. But I figured I knew you were making the call because you hate engagement.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
No.
Well,
It's bad.
here is a.
I can hear a sound. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear a sound. So, Chris, while Ernie's trying to figure out what the hell's going on, do you want to give us your elevator pitch, or Kelly, your elevator pitch, or Brandon, your elevator pitch?
I don't have an elevator pitch. I would be in an elevator. I'm just like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Where are you going? Go to the bar?
Hey, Chris, what areas do you, I forgot what you said. What kinds of, what's your niche?
It's mostly senior individual contributors and management positions, largely in technical industries. So the evolution of what I've done is I did all IT staffing for a while. And then what I started doing was hiring all kinds of people for technology businesses. So it went from just like IT and like software developers to like controllers and salespeople for software companies or whatever. And then in the last few years, I moved it up and just really stick to like the more senior positions or the management positions. So that's a long answer to a short question, but I wanted to explain. Yeah, I got there. So for me, it's not. I'm not asking them to do this on like a $50,000 a year help desk position. So it's usually a role that's of some critical importance, and I'm usually talking. You're not going to pitch this to HR, right? I deal with owners. Most of my clients are between, I don't know, 50 and 200 employees, give or take. They have either no HR or they have one overworked HR manager who just doesn't have time for this stuff. And I'm just kind of their go-to or whatever. And what I actually found when I was converting from like well over a decade of having these clients and doing all contingency was like, I thought like, well, how many will get them like on board with this? There was some trust there because I knew a lot of those. So that I think was easier. And it was great to kind of beta test on people who were familiar with me. But what the really test of that was when I started talking to people I never met before, right? And they're like, okay, like, how does this work? And again, I don't think a retainer is always the answer. I don't want to chain myself to something that's not doable. And sometimes I do some contingency too. So I'm by no means like this retained purist. But if I think it's the path I want to go, one of the things depending on how and depending on kind of like the stuff they bring up and the things that seem important to them, I tell them, look at like kind of the total cost. Because one of the things I'll tell them is, because I'm, the way contingency is priced, especially if they're familiar with recruiters, is that, it's high risk, high reward. So it's 25% or nothing, right? Whereas if I am working on this with you, it's going to get filled. So I'm not taking out as much of a risk personally, so I don't have to charge you as much. Not that I'm going to go bargain basement, but I'm going to give them a deal. So the total cost is going to be less. I also explain to them the dynamic of contingency versus what I do and explain, listen, I ran a firm like that for years. They bring in 20, 25, 50 job orders, however many recruiters are sitting there working on those. And the measure of success is you just fill enough of them, right? And I contrasted against like the firm I ran for a while. And I'm like, so if somebody's working on a ton of positions, and I know there's some people out there that might just do a few at a time, but they're playing the numbers. So if they fill a few, they made their month, they're happy. What about the other customers, right? But if we have skin in the game and I've taken some of your money, I'm going to get this done for you. We both have skin in the game. This needs to get done. I only work on a few services at a time. this is going to get my attention every day until it's done. Which means in a lot of cases I can get it done faster because I can give it an extra level of focus. So I articulate it different ways, but I think the big things are like the total cost can be better, the focus, the fact that, you know, I highlight the other things I'll do for them. Like a contingency recruiter is not going to invest time necessarily in, you know, buying lists, or which we don't really do much of that anymore, but like spending money on like having me doing some assessments or any upfront money at all. You don't want to do your contingency recruiter, because what if you don't fill it, right? But I also highlight that I do like what Tom does, where I show you everyone I'm going to go after. Like here's the list. This is who I'm going to go after. I don't have any problem sharing with you, because this is what you're paying me to do, right? But I can spend, because I can give you more of my time, I can spend more time with you up front, really dig in and understand the business need, understand it from the perspective of all the stakeholders that are involved in the decision, so that this doesn't get torpedoed at the end and somebody comes and says, oh, that's not what I wanted. And we've all been there, and they're all always inevitably say, yep, I know how that goes. So does that kind of make sense? I'm rambling a little bit. Usually better when I talk to a client. I swear it's Chris with this when I talk to somebody. But like some of the contrasts are, because of the amount of focus you give it, I can do more, and I can probably do it faster because I know it's gonna get done. Anyway,
that's very good. I mean, those are really good, because
it was fucking awful.
No, but you're selling. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to convert. And you're selling the relationship, right? You're selling that we're no longer transactional, we're now a partnership. And I start out with, due to today's current unemployment or today's environment or current what's going on, I can't work contingency anymore. We are too busy. I have too many good clients. You know, if you want us to put the time and effort into it, you have to compete with them. And then people say, well, how do you do a client you've had for a while? It's like, look, I'll try to add you in, but as I get more clients on engagement fee, eventually, Steve, as much as I love you and we've done a lot of work together, I'm not going to be able to help you, because I have clients who are willing to commit. And since you know me, I don't understand why you're not willing to commit. Right? So you have to sell that transactional relationship or partnership. Like we talk about the list, right? We talk about we're working this together. You know, I'm going to find you the person. You know, we're a team. You know, those are all the things that you were selling, but just make them realize that in today's environment, it's normal, right? No one pays 3 accountants to do their books. No one hires 3 business attorneys to defend them for a class action lawsuit, right? No one says, hey, you 3 accountants, here's my books. Whoever gets done it first, I'm going to pay. Fuck you, no.
And the other thing too, like and because I'm an advocate for you and only you, because you get picks, because I tell them, like, listen, every recruiter wants exclusivity from you, but how many of them give you exclusivity, right? So I point that out and I say, listen, you know, we're not, if you're a CPA firm, you need to hire like a tax manager for you. Everybody's looking for one. If I was just doing basic contingency 101, I would take a good tax manager and I would do the Robert Half, just fucking send them to everybody. Someone's paying me. No, that's not how this is going to work. Advocate. I am doing this out there in this crazy market for you and you alone. If you don't want them, then I can put them somewhere else. But like I am, again, it's that we're in this together. I'm on your team type of thing that Tom was just saying too. So.
Yeah, and for branding, you're new to this. That's what you're selling, an extension. I mean, there's so many buzzwords. We're an extension of your recruiting team, right? We're in a partnership together. But that's what you're trying to sell them, because all they know is the old way. And because we're not regulated, because we don't have to be trained, because we don't have any type of board of recruiting, any idiot like Ben Nadler can go out there and they can turn anybody into a recruiter, and they all suck. So they go out there and the clients are like, yeah, we had 7 recruiters. They took money from us. The guys didn't show up. And then we have to fight against that too.
Yeah.
And,
I just got a Slack message from our account executive, and he said, hey, this person just got back to us. We thought he was high priority. He was dodging my calls, blah, blah, blah. Finally got him on the phone, and my account executive said he was dodging me, not answering my calls and emails for the last few weeks. Finally got him on the phone, and he explained to me that he gave his internal team our pitch on recruiting. Their response was that all recruiting agencies are evil. So it's funny that I just got that message while all this was happening, and they're basically giving us the opportunity to differentiate ourselves from their experience is probably exactly what you were describing with the shotgun spray and pray approach. So I'm definitely going to take some time and write them a little novel of why we do things differently.
Don't get a novel. Get in front of them.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Like actually, no. Get in front of them. Get them on a Zoom call or a phone call so they can hear the passion in your voice. You can explain, you can overcome objections, right? Because if I'm in a meeting and someone says all recruiting firms are evil, I can overcome that objection, but I can't overcome that in an email.
Right. Yeah. Especially if it's secondhand, but it's good that they're giving you an opportunity. And I mean, another thing you want to think about, like a common complaint about recruiters of any kind is like communication related. Right, whether it's them getting back to you, whether it's them letting you know what's going on, but like there are a variety of things that people don't like about recruiters that stem from communication. And so one of the things you want to highlight with them is that there's some kind of formal cadence to like your updates and your communication, so that I tell them, I'm like, typical recruiter is going to say, okay, cool, I got the job order. I know what you're looking for. Trust me. That's the other thing, by the way. I recap my intake notes before I go do anything. So I'm like, here's what we this is what I took from this. If I missed anything, this is a good time to let me know. But so you're confirming, you're reconfirming expectations, that kind of thing along the way. Because what'll typically happen, I know because I used to do it, is you get on a half-hour call, you get a job order, and then you're like, okay, they're like, you got it? And you're like, yep, I got it, which maybe you don't got it. And then you run off and say, who knows what to who knows who, and maybe you come up with something. Whereas I'm saying, I'm going to sit down with you, figure out what we're looking for, figure out the messaging, figure out, it's your story I'm trying to tell. So you tell me. And I'm like, the other thing is, if I am in this engagement relationship with you as opposed to contingency, I don't have to hide who it is. Right? Because another thing people hear on the candidate side is that there's like, it's some sketchy job. I don't know if it's real or not. You know how much power there is when I email a candidate? You know what kind of response rates you get when you say, well, I'm representing this company? It's a real job. They take you seriously. So when I explain to them the dynamic that a recruiter contacting someone about a vague job isn't going to get the kind of response because people don't trust that, then they're like, okay, that makes sense. When I explain to them that I'm going to give you updates, like, now I'm going to make sure that we're on the same page with what I'm saying to the people. I'm going to let them know it's you so that I have more credibility. And I'm going to let you know what's happening, right? Here's that list we were talking about. Cool. I talked to this one. They're not looking, blah, blah. This one gave me 2 more names, blah, blah. This one, maybe they're interested. This one's looking for like 50K more than you're looking for. This one only wants remote, boom, boom, boom. You're showing them status. And like, that's one reason also why I don't commit to more than a couple searches at a time, because I also have to do these updates. Because that's the other thing I've said in the past. I'm like, it's easy to sell retain because it sounds great because you're gonna do all this stuff with them, but like you actually have to fucking do it.
Yeah. That's the problem. the I lost my train of thought there for a second, but the way that the customers, the clients looking at you, and Jeff, and he said, hey, I can say who you are. Jeff K. Baskin says, I want to stand on the mountaintop and go, I'm recruiting for Amazon, right? You want to be that. Chris hit the nail on the head. I mean, that gives a lot of credibility when you can say, hey, I'm recruiting for XYZ Corporation for this location for this. And they're not, and the candidates are like, wow, because they're always getting, I'm doing a confidential search for a company in your backyard that, and who is it? Well, I can't tell you, it's confidential. That's what scares candidates off. But when you can yell it, like Chris was saying, and Jeff K's been saying that for decades, like that gives credibility that other recruiters don't have.
And if I do this on contingency, I can't do that because I can't risk them going to your website and applying right after I send them a message.
Oh,
exactly.
Because that's going to happen, and
or he tells another recruiter that he likes better than you. Hey, Chris called me about Amazon. Hey, can you see if you can get me in the door at Amazon? And then Brandon calls up Amazon and gets the guy in, and Chris gets through. Yeah, I mean that's always been my concern, right? I had a candidate one time go after I pitched him the job. I told him who it was. I was on the case. He went to the client, tried to get in, and the client was like, "How'd you find out about this?" And they go, "Tom, last year." He goes, "Why didn't you go through Tom?" Because I was trying to save you money, and they were like, "No, get out of here." They were pissed. And that was, it made me feel good. It was a Simpson strong talk. It made me feel good that they respected that, you know. But I've also had situations where I thought the candidate was, you know, interested in the job. Next thing I know, he's replying on his own. And try to get that fee from a contingency client. Try to show the contingency client that you called Steve Jones Tuesday, told him all about the company, sent them information, and was waiting on his resume. And he called them on Thursday and say, "Look, like, you know, the only reason Steve knows about your job is me. You know, send me a fee." Try to get that fee.
Yeah.
That's tough. But on engagement fee, it won't happen. They'll pay you.
Yeah.
You know? Kelly, we have 13 minutes left. Let's hear your pitch to a new client about
13 minutes. We wanted like 2
I know,
hours. What are you talking about? 13 minutes left. Anyway, sorry.
Well, yeah, I got the crutches off, dude. I have no crutches now, but I have PT still. So I know you do a little differently, but how do you sell your kind of weird recruiting services?
Great intro, right? Like what?
That's how I do it. I tell them I have a weird service. So I work on an hourly basis. And so it's basically a modified retained service. And my fee is less than you guys at the end of the day. You know,
What happened? Do you bill them a minimum amount? Do you, like, let's say you charge let's just say we charge $100 an hour. You charge $100 an hour for this service, and you're going to find a oncologist researcher guy, right? And you've worked on it for 10 hours. They send you $1,000. They bill you weekly. Is that how it works?
I bill them. And no, not really, because the stuff I do is generally pretty difficult. And so I know.
What if you find a guy in one day? Yeah. What if you
find
a guy a day?
It's
you only get paid $1,000?
No, usually, you know, you keep going until it's over.
Oh, so you're billing them through, you found the candidate while they're interviewing him, while you're prepping him, while they're going through, and until they finally sign the dotted line, he shows up, you're being paid hourly for any work you do in between there.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I can see, like, I always thought about, like, what if you take on this hourly rate thing? And sometimes I've gotten a search and I've gotten the candidate in my database. I call them up, "Hey, do you want to come work for XYZ?" And they go, "Yeah." The next day I send the guy, they hire him, and I got a $20,000 fee.
Yeah.
But at an hourly rate, I'm looking at $1,000. So I was just wondering, how do you deal with that? And does it ever, like, what's the lowest you've ever had to bill? And did you walk away feeling bad that, like, hey, I didn't get paid for that?
No, not really. Because I usually get a lot of business from companies. Usually when I get in there, I mean, I'm like I become their person. So okay. I usually get like all of it. I was gonna say something, but I forgot what it was. But
you're more of a consultant
yeah.
Consultant beyond just HR or recruiting. You were helping them get an ATS. I think you were asking me about GEM or one of them and everything. So yeah, that's interesting. So you've got some clients that are willing to pay you.
I do their contracts because I have been to law school. So I make sure that the contracts are up to snuff. And yeah, I don't just, I mean, I can do any part of the process. And I do generate candidates and stuff like that, but I pretty much, I work across verticals, and I don't specialize within that realm. And each search that I do, I don't go into a database to find somebody. Every search that I do, I'm starting from scratch. So and like I said, I mean, these are difficult, like, this is not, you know, these are difficult searches.
Sales reps.
Yeah. So
that's interesting, because I've heard of recruiting firms selling consultative services. There was a guy in Florida that I knew that sold. They would come in and train the staff on screening phone calls so recruiters couldn't get in, and training HR on how to interview and how to use LinkedIn and how to use Monster and how to use a career builder. And he was charging like $250 an hour. Well, and they would fly him into California for a week, and put up at a hotel and charge them $250 an hour. He'd train their staff and then go home. And I
That's
said,
how
"No,
much
guess
I
it's a big gig,
charge.
but, yeah,
Yeah.
250.
So
Okay, yeah. And
I
then
charge
at the end of the
between,
day, I guess,
yeah, I charge between $200 and $300 an hour, and I get paid whether I get a placement or not. You know, so yeah, it's a different way to work, but I would say, you know, it's not speculative. So I'm getting paid no matter what, and it generally turns out to be a win-win situation. I still make, you know, as you know, well, maybe you don't, but I make, you know, I make a lot of money. So I'm not, you know, I'm still making very good money not doing contingent. Yeah, even a traditional retainer, in my opinion, you do that because you want the candidate, whoever they are, to have a certain experience. You know, wine and dine, all kinds of fancy stuff. The times that I've done that were when I worked for an agency and we did CEO searches or high level searches and stuff like that. And I didn't want to get involved in that. So.
Yeah, but you found a space that you're comfortable with and can fill and can make money doing, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different
Brandon,
ways.
put you on the spot. Let's hear your pitch.
Well, I basically just bash contingency. I use a lot of lines that I heard from you guys, you know, 3 weeks ago, whenever the last roundtable I was in, about like the hiring the accountants, and you know, any contractor that you work with to build a deck on the back of your house is going to ask for some sort of upfront payment, with time and materials. And the big thing that yeah, it's funny, you guys already mentioned this, but like we use those buzzwords: partnerships, team extension. And so I start out by just talking about how there's misaligned incentives and the
That's a great buzzword.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a great buzzword.
I mean,
We
even
throw that-
phrase, I mean, I feel like buzzword can sound disingenuous because a buzzword sounds like something you're saying but like, yeah, like
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
What was it again? I want to type it out. What's it again?
Misaligned incentives.
Which is, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? I mean, the client doesn't, but I know, I can tell where you're going with this, and I like it.
Yeah, basically, when any company, any business agrees to work for free, you're just taking on this, like you guys have said, this massive amount of risk. And it's like, okay, as any business owner knows that when that happens, you need to find ways to de-risk. And then I go into everything that you guys mentioned about like this shotgun approach, is how they de-risk. And you know, whether the company realizes it or not, they're now competing with every other company that is under contract. And so we lay that out, and then we say, like, that is not what we do, and we are a partnership. And then we go into like you get exclusivity, you get our alignment meeting, where we're going to sit down with you for an hour and do a deep dive in everything, and we're going to record it. And one of the big things that we say, there's two things we say. We say, number one, you get a customized screening process. So we're going to ask you for red flag questions. What are questions we should be asking during screening or pre-screening that's like an automatic disqualification? Like they say no to this question, don't want to speak to this person. So we get this like customized screening process just for them. You know, that's part of the partnership. And then we tell them, like, this is a living, breathing thing. When you reject someone, we're gonna ask why. If it's something we can incorporate into the screening process, then we will. And then here's our line. Our line is, we never want you to reject someone for the same reason twice. Unless it's
great.
It shows a learning approach. Like, yeah, I love that.
We iterate, we're here to learn with you. We're not promising to be perfect. Anyone that says, yeah, you know, we're going to be perfect, promises 100% success is just like a snake oil salesman. And so, yeah, that's sort of like hammers home that, like, hey, we're a partner. We're here to learn with you. We're here to like really learn what you need, what you want. And then there's some other stuff. There's some statistics we bring up. The new one we're bringing up actually that I really like, because we got this email. We're doing a search for a head of sales for a startup in San Francisco, and there's this woman that we came into contact with, Marcy Bloom. She sent us an email after our screening interview with her, saying, thank you so much for the time yesterday morning. If you are any indication of bold metrics management style, even as an independent contractor, they must be terrific. So one of the things that we're hammering home in our sales presentations is that candidate experience has become important. And and we just tell them like, hey, this is part of your brand now. And so we provide an exceptional candidate experience, and the candidate is going to see that experience with us as an extension of your brand. And so working with us is actually good for your brand because of that. So that's like another, and we have that quote right in like our presentation and stuff. And so it's, you know, it's more concise and it makes sense when I give the pitch, but I'm just kind of like,
I know, I'm like, when you're trying to like, because part of when you're trying to explain this, it's like, instead of role playing it, like you also want to be explaining it as you're doing it. So
the context.
It takes you out of character and it gets all that. That's what I did.
Objections and everything.
Meandering all over the place. You know what, Brandon? I think that one thing that's really important that you often overlooked, not just what you're saying, but who you're saying it to. So things that you're saying, like talking about the contractor example, or like that, or talking about the like what business would operate that way type of thing. That's only going to land with like an owner.
Yes.
It's not going to work on
100%.
HR because that's not, they can't relate to that. So
that
I think, I mean, I think you know that already, but I think for the benefit of anybody like watching this later, that is a really important part of it. You could have the best, smoothest pitch for why you should do an engaged search, and you deliver it to like an HR manager and it fucking falls flat.
Yeah.
They just have the authority and it's not their business. So they're not looking at it in the same way that we're trying to portray it.
He said about the contractors are going to take money up front, and it made me think about something. Is there a single business that people work on contingency where multiple firms are hired besides recruiting? Right? Yeah. There's nothing. Even
ambulance chasers.
Exactly. Ambulance chasers. They work contingency, but they get a third, and they're
real estate agents are going to sign you to a buyer's agreement.
Exactly. Yeah, there is not a single business out there that works on contingency with more than one person, right? So if you're going to work contingency, I have to have 100% exclusive, and if you know, and if you're going to go 100% exclusive, why aren't you giving me $3,000 up front so we know we're going to fill the position?
A real estate agent is going to sign you to a buyer's agreement if you're listing, it's very clear you're selling with them. But like if you're shopping too, they're not going to waste their time going to check places out unless you've signed an agreement. Hey, at the end of the day, if you end up doing it through another agent, they're like, that's fine. I'm still getting paid. So whatever.
Yeah. And so that's always been my thing now. Is there's no longer any business out there that works contingency with multiple firms except for us, and we have to stop that.
Yeah, it's like, gee, I wonder why people have had really terrible experiences with contingency agencies. Like maybe there's something deeply wrong with the model.
Well, and if you also point out too, like along those lines, if there's multiple people working on it, or even if the company's working on it, you're going for speed versus quality, right? So you are now, all those firms that are working, they're in a race to timestamp that name for them first. That's
race to the fax machine.
That is all that matters, because at the end of the day, that is going to decide whether you get paid or not. So that is all that matters, and that's the incentives, right? So if my goal is I can't have the candidate apply directly, so I have to be super sketchy and shady with them, and I got to beat everyone else to the punch, I'm going to cut corners left and right, and I'm just going to get that name in that inbox, and that's all that matters. How is that providing you any value? Like your candidates are going to be not feeling great about this. We're not going to get the best candidates because I have to be at best sketchy with them, you know, because you're being so vague. And then I'm gonna cut corners, and no matter how well I say I'm going to qualify the people, the fastest that they can get into your inbox, that's all that matters. And is that what you want?
Yeah.
You're setting me up to fail and repeat exactly what happened in the past. You called me because you heard about reputation, you heard about what we do, how good we are, and now you want me to work like everybody else you worked with before and expect me to do different results. It doesn't work that way. You called me because you heard how good I am. This is why I'm good. You want me to work your way? No.
It hurts them. It's gonna hurt them in the long run. This process being so jammed up and people getting that, you're going to waste opportunities because there's only so many good candidates out there for what you're looking for. So if you go at it all screwy and turn people off, it's your business that's going to suffer.
Bryce Cohen says, how's a candidate going to feel getting a call from three different recruiters in a period of 48 hours with three different pitches about the same job, right? What's one of Bryce Cohen's biggest
That's a good way to think about it.
Like you're going to have, your job's going to be out there and you're going to have Ernie and Chris and Brandon call, and they're going to pitch the job three different ways. It's going to be similar, but they may get the compensation different, the responsibilities, and that candidate's going to go, "What the hell, man? Is this job real?"
Yeah,
and that's how you want your company. That's how you want your company represented.
And
Yeah,
the best compliment I could ever get from a candidate, and I tell this to clients, is it sounds like you work there. Like a lot of times they're like, I'm not even sure. Like, do you work for the company or are you a separate recruiter? Like that's the best thing I can hear. And I tell the
people I'm a separate recruiter sometimes.
Yeah. And frankly, when you say I'm calling on behalf of XYZ company,
they assume. Yeah.
I make sure I'm not dishonest with them, but I'm like, listen, if people are saying that to me, it means that I'm representing you the best that I possibly can in the market.
What do you do, Ernie, because we were just talking about how you don't take on retained searches. So when you take on a search, do you make sure it's an exclusive, or
how do you sell against us?
Yeah. Or how do you qualify to make sure that they're worth your time,
He's
I
gone.
think he died.
There he is. This internet here is it's time to go home. Yeah, I'm in California, in rural California, and we use our neighbor. I'm at my 87-year-old mother-in-law's house, and she has no internet. So we have an agreement with her neighbor that lets us use her internet, and so hey, thank you for a little bit, and it goes off and on. But I don't use contingent. I use contingent only, and I just don't like retained because it's kind of like telling me what to do. And anytime you have me I don't like it. And I don't respond to that. Just like some people respond to yelling, I don't respond to yelling. And I don't want to be owned by anybody. Sometimes with engagement is probably as far as I'll go. And then I use engagement to say, if I don't fill your position, then I'll take it to the next step, the next position. Did you hear me at all?
So how do you qualify the requirements to make sure that they're because for the people who are watching that would want to just be better at selling contingent.
Well, if you did it to get into retained, I think the first question I'd ask them is, have you had experience with retained? If they have, then it's a different conversation than if they never had in terms of the hiring manager.
No, I want to know how you qualify yourself to take a search. How do you realize your client's going to pay your fee, give you exclusive, make sure that they give you feedback and hire your candidates? What do you do if you don't work on the way we do? How do you qualify that?
Yeah, if they're in your database, I don't care. You're still paying me. It's in my agreement. How do you, I don't know, hedge your risk?
What do I do? What do I do to get a contingency search, or what do I do to get a new client? I'm trying to, or to get retained.
To get a contingency search that you feel comfortable spending your time on and getting paid on.
Yeah, what I would do is I would end up calling somebody with I'd end up calling somebody with the fact that I have experience in that position and talk to them. But to be honest with you, for most people, I know a lot of people, and I've done this for 20 years.
Well, no, so not the selling of it. but like, what did the circumstances have to be? Like, for example, like before you came on, we were saying there's no reason to take it if it's not exclusive because you're racing against a bunch of other firms. So like when I take on a contingency,
I think communication.
It's got like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's kind of communication. It's kind of like if I call you, I want you to call me back. I have somebody right now that they have like 20 jobs and they're telling me about one job, and I'm just not excited about dealing with them. And they're saying, "Well, you haven't contacted us." And my thing was, okay, well, call me. I'm available today, tomorrow, the day after. They tell me, well, and this is the hiring director. She tells me I'm not available next week or the week after because I'm visiting a plant. Now my thoughts are, I've been in that situation. I could pick up the phone and talk to you in 10 minutes. And if they don't have time for me to call me over the weekend or whatever, then I don't want to deal with them. So in order to work with me, we got to talk. And not text, not email, and you can do all that. But when it comes down and dirty, if you see my name, please call me back. If you don't, I don't want to deal with you.
But I mean, that's a good point, because a lot of times I feel like, especially contingent recruiters can be, and I remember because I've been there, in this kind of subservient position where they're just like, and almost some people even taught how to like bother the client, right? But it's like, okay, no, we have to understand up front that if I'm calling you, it's important. It's for a reason. I'm not going to waste your time.
And the thing is, when you really think about it, when you do talk to them, how long are you on the phone with them? It's like 2 minutes, you know. And give me an update on
that. What's that telling me?
Yeah, like I just submitted John Jeffries to you. Can you give me an update? Oh, we're going to pass on him. Great. But I've also come to the conclusion of this whole thing of let's keep them on hold. Let's keep them warm. There's no bullshit on that. You know, yes or no,
Nope.
and you know we can't keep them warm, but they're gone. I tell them I tell them no, but it's kind of interesting, and so that I guess that's what I would tell you. It's I work with you if you call me, if you treat me with respect, I will call you. But you know the fun thing I found out too is that I can talk to vice presidents and presidents, and they will call me back. The lower I go, you don't get that same kind of callback.
Yeah. I get owners that'll text me back all different hours on the weekend, whatever. And you get other people. Yeah, yeah.
And then that whole stuff of people saying, "Well, I got my family time and everything else." I appreciate that, you know, and I know it, but it just doesn't jive with me in the sense that I only want 2 minutes. I'm not going to take up your whole afternoon.
I feel like too many recruiters will spin their wheels and go broke on wasting their time when they see the potential of what they could make on an opening, and it's like, but they have all the red flags, right? They just sent you a job order. They don't have any time to talk to you on the phone. They're giving you they're not getting back to you, and they just take it and deal with it. And because in their mind, there's like, but there's that money. And I try to tell them that money was never there. Work on something else. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're getting past the hour.
But the other thing I'm going to tell you is this. I just took 3 weeks off, right? I didn't tell anybody that I took 3 weeks off. And one of my clients was saying, "What happened to you?" I said, "Well, I took 3 weeks off." "Why didn't you let us know? Because you never let me know when you go on vacation." And I call, and they tell me, "Oh, she's out for the week." Well, you know, it works the same way, you know.
That's a good point. He brings up very good points. Well, hey guys, I appreciate it. I got to get out of here. I got PT today. As always, great to do our roundtable. I think that a lot was talked about good, getting contingency clients to engagement fee, retainer, container, contingency, all that stupid stuff we hear.
When to use it, when
not to use it. Yeah, exactly. So everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
Next week I'll be good. I'll be home.
I hope so. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.